Bandwidth provided by Recursive Squirrel Interactive. Video conferencing provided by Pluot.co. Episode 483, Flushing Hamsters. For Monday, February 12th, 2018, it's time for this week's edition of the BeanCast, a weekly discussion about the news and issues facing marketers today. I'm your host, Bob Norp. Thanks for joining us. The post-game reviews are in, and once again, the BeanCast is ready to offer our analysis of the analysis show. Tonight, we'll look at the big winners and losers from the Super Bowl ad game and discuss whether any of it lived up to the hype. Also, a look at evaluating the effectiveness of the ads and whether Elon Musk's little rocket stunt stole away all the big game's attention value. Plus, this week's Ad Fail 5. That's the lineup. Let's meet tonight's panel. Thanks for joining us for this week's BeanCast. I'm Bob Norp, and with me on the panel for this evening, we start with the principal consultant at Beetle Moment Marketing, Ms. Emily Binder. Hey, Emily.
Hi, Bob. Thanks so much for having me back.
Oh, always my pleasure to have you on the show. Now, also with us, we have the smartest man in the world, principal consultant at the Idea Integration Company, and my unofficial co-host, Mr. Saul Colt. Hey, Saul, what's happening?
Hey, Bob, it's super exciting to be here today. The only thing better would be if we were in the same room.
I know, but we don't often get that opportunity, but we'll make it happen again soon. Now, next up, we welcome back the Executive Creative Director of Digital at Averitt Free Ginsburg, Mr. Colin Glaum. Hey, Colin.
Hey, Bob. Thanks so much for having me on, especially my favorite week of the year to talk about advertising.
Yeah, it is a big week, and we got a lot to talk about tonight. And finally, we have the president of Mashburn Enterprises, Mr. Jonathan Sackett. Hey, Jonathan.
Hey, Bob. Hey, guys. Hi, Emily.
Hi, Jonathan.
I'm sure there's much to tell on that, but we'll get right into the topics. Look, it is the annual analysis of the analysis show, and we get into all kinds of discussions about the Super Bowl and the ad game that went on during those fabulous moments when the Eagles won. I am so happy. Colin, I know that you are with me.
Yes.
100%. But anyway, we're not here to talk about which team won and which team lost, although the Eagles did trounce the Patriots. I'm not going to brag too much. I do want to talk about the ads, though, and let's start by talking about our favorite ads of the night, because it's always good to start with the positive, right? And Colin, I'm going to start with you. What's your thoughts on the ad game that happened this past Sunday, and was it everything that you expected it to be?
No, it wasn't. I actually expected to be, if last year was any indication of the political, sense of the, climate of the country, I thought for sure that there would be a lot more pointed advertising, a lot more social commentary. And they played it very, very safe this year, dialed everything way, way back. I felt like it was a little middling. Usually what you do when you see the work of around the Super Bowl, it's pretty often a snapshot of what the country is going through or feeling at that particular moment. And so last year was a great example of that. I thought, given all the rise of the political activist movement that's kind of happening across the country right now, that we would have some of that reflected in the work. And I didn't see anything of that nature. I did see some stuff that I really, really enjoyed. I have to give kudos to the NFL, even though they are the evil empire for a lot of us who are football fans. They really nailed it, I thought, with the Dirty Dancing ripoff with
my God, yeah, that Dirty Dancing ad was just hilarious, because the lead up to it was really terrible. I mean, all those little tiny ads where they were trying to prepare for their big end zone celebration, it was just unintelligible, and I kept thinking, this is not going to go anywhere, it's not going to be exciting. But when they revealed the final ad, it was just extraordinary.
So I was in a very, very crowded bar for this, and the audio was okay, but for the most part, nobody stopped during the ads for any, considerable amount of time. That one silenced the entire bar, and people were uproariously laughing from like 10 seconds into it. So it really was a showstopper, at least where I was.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Any other? Well, before we go back to you, because I do want to get your impressions about some of the other ads that you thought were really strong, I want to go to Jonathan. What's your thoughts on the ads? What were your favorites? What were the ones that were the most exciting and the ones that gave you the most value?
Well, I try not to look at things as an ad guy, which is not easy. Because did it entertain? Did it enlighten? Did it do something? That's what I usually try to look for. I really like the Toyota one, where they show the baby born with missing some limbs. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
The
I do know
Paralympic
that
athlete.
one. Yeah.
Paralympics. Thank you. Thanks, Emily.
You're welcome.
But I enjoyed that. Now again, I don't know really truly what worked and what didn't. I think I'm in the minority here that the NFL one annoyed the crap out of me. And that was just because all it did is teach me that Eli can't dance.
I thought it was clever and it was fun and it was kind of a nice image for the NFL in a year when they didn't have a whole lot of good imagery to deal with.
Oh, that's very, very, very true. It did put a better face on the brand. There's no doubt about it. I just think, things that are aspirational or inspiring, the things that move me are always the things that I like the best. And the Paralympics one, I thought that was done beautifully. But
for
whether it sold product or not, God only knows.
For me, that was a questionable one because it was a really touching ad that got to the Toyota part, and I just kind of went, "What? I mean, how is this connected to Toyota?"
I don't think they connected it at the end well enough. No, I totally agree with you there. I'm just saying that as far as the narrative of being inspiring, I thought that they did a good job with that. How you marry that up to the brand, I have no idea. I would have rather have seen them use Rick and Dick Hoyt from Team Hoyt for something like that.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar.
I don't know what his condition is. It's like muscular dystrophy or something even more severe than that. But
oh,
he's,
yeah.
bound to a
I was,
wheelchair, and his father pushes him for
right.
For the
Okay.
Iron Man. Yeah, I was. I was on the board of directors for Team Hoyt, and with Rick and Dick, his dad had 3 heart attacks, and at the age of 72 was still pulling his paraplegic son through the Iron Man.
Yeah, I am familiar with who this is now, and it's just like it's a pretty inspiring story. But I don't think it was the story that was the problem. I mean, I think the story was plenty inspiring, and it was captivating. It definitely got your attention. It's just it didn't thread the needle at the end of the end of the ad. I kind of got to Toyota, and I had no connection to what they were trying to get across to me in terms of why Toyota and this person are connected, other than the fact that they're doing a sponsorship deal with her as a Paralympic. Olympian.
It's supposed to tie back to mobility, right? Toyota mobility.
I know, but that's a really long way to go for a roast beef sandwich.
I'm really surprised none of you guys have mentioned Tide. I thought they were the faraway leader of the evening, not just with creativity, but just the fact that they kind of owned the conversation of the night, and they owned the conversation without ever mentioning like Tide Pods or anything like that, which has been the other reason they've been in the news so much. I thought Tide was the faraway winner, and as far as best ads, never mind like winner or loser, I still go back to the M&M's one that I talked about last week on the show. I thought that was a great use of a celebrity. I thought it was funny. It was edgy without really being edgy, and it was a little different for M&M's. Like we talked last week about how Super Bowl ads are all just nonsense to begin with, and the brands that can afford it aren't the ones that need the recognition. So for any brand to do something memorable or something a little out of their brand guidelines or a little edgy, that's the thing you take notice to. So I still sort of stand by the fact that anytime you get Danny DeVito to do anything, it's going to be amazing.
Well, let's.
I've decided I'm never going to eat Danny DeVito. That's pretty much right.
Well, okay, yeah. I mean, the Danny
He's
DeVito
fun
ad,
sized.
that Danny DeVito ad was a little bit on the creepy side, and it was definitely memorable, but I don't know that it played well in Poughkeepsie. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's not
But how else can M&Ms at this point differentiate themselves from anything? You know, it's like one of these brands that have been around for I don't know how many years, and it's like, okay, they've got a talking, piece of candy. Unless the candy gets racist or offensive, there's nothing you're going to ever do that's memorable except for maybe put it in, Oswald Cobblepot's body and stuff like that. Like I actually thought this was a real interesting way of standing out for a brand that has nothing interesting about it going on.
I'm with Saul on this one. I loved it, and I thought it was hilarious to see him just lounging back in this pool of chocolate, like spooning it over himself. It really stopped me dead in my tracks, and I laughed really hard at it.
And that was just the preview ad.
That was just the preview ad. Yeah. Like, I didn't even know what was coming, but just seeing Danny DeVito lounging in a pool of chocolate was enough for me. If we want to talk about things, are ones that were standing out or kind of towing the line or stepping across the edge.
Well, before we get into that, because it's just like I do want to hear more from you, Colin, because I want to hear everybody's favorites from the game. But let's talk about that Tide ad a little bit first before we get Emily's opinion. That Tide ad got a lot of attention. It was really interesting. It dominated conversations online, but it dominated the kind of conversations that happen among ad people. And I'm wondering, did it really connect with consumers as well as it did with the ad community that seemed to love this thing to death?
I think when you're talking, I think it was a little bit, to me, it was like us talking to ourselves, in my opinion. Now the resulting chatter coming on after the fact, that probably serves some purpose for them because it extends the life of the brand, it extends the life of the production. But when I saw it, I felt a little bit like it was our community talking to ourselves. So yeah, of course, there's going to be a lot of conversation about it. But
it was classic feature. It was classic feature benefit. It's just like it was a whole ad built around feature benefit. If you have clean clothes, we're the ones who probably gave you the clean clothes. So we're the ones who you should be talking to. I think that's a really strong message. Emily, any thoughts on that? And also, what were your favorite ads?
I did like the Tide ad. It was meta and it was almost a little bit Onion funny. I thought, in a way, it's almost edgy because they were mocking pretty much everyone else there. So it ended with Tide is America's #1 detergent in America. And to your point, Colin, I don't know if the average consumer kind of picked up on that, but no, it wasn't a typo. It was a joke. Yeah. So they're self-aware to acknowledge they simply make clothes clean.
Yeah, that's what I got across. That's what I got from that ad campaign. Was it really highlighted the fact of what the product does and why we're fun to be around. And I think it did an excellent job of completely hijacking the Super Bowl. It's just that it didn't show up in any of the ad favorites, and I'm wondering, does that matter? I mean, when it showed up in the ad favorites for the industry, but not in the general public, and that's what.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I feel like it was us talking to it was an advertising moment, not a branding or marketing moment. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. I know we're going to talk about problem ads in a minute, but can I throw something out here that I think one ad that just completely. It was neutral. It wasn't good or wasn't bad, and it's not going to come up in either conversation. I don't know if anyone saw the Groupon ad with the female comedian, the celebrity, who their whole angle was just like, oh, look, she's a celebrity and she uses Groupon. Her name's Tiffany Haddish. Thank you. And so she got getting a little inside baseball, she got this spokesperson role, from what I understand, because she told this great story on the Jimmy Kimmel show that her, Will Smith, and Jada Smith went on some adventure, and they used a Groupon altogether. So she told a story. Someone at Groupon or someone at their agency said, "Oh, we probably can't afford Will Smith and Jada Smith, so let's get her. She uses Groupon." And the whole commercials were just like these, like, "Oh, look, it's a celebrity using Groupon," when she should have just told that story again, because the story was far more compelling than the TV commercials.
Right. And then it was disjointed because just the Tiffany part would have been more effective. And then they've got this cliche old rich white man in a mansion who doesn't support local business, complete with a kick to the groin.
Yeah. And I think that admittedly, this probably would have worked better if she just related the story. However, as soon as she tells that story, they need to get Will Smith and Jada involved with this ad. I mean, they may not have to appear in the ad, but they certainly got to get their permission because it's a tacit endorsement.
I don't think
from
anyone
celebrities.
got Martin Luther King Jr.'s permission.
Well, that's that's in the bad
I can't wait to
side.
talk about that one.
Well, Emily, while we're on you and while we're talking to you, what were your favorite ads in the entire night?
I liked the Amazon ad. I thought it was really creative. Also, did you guys notice that when you replayed it on YouTube, wherever you're living, that first few seconds of the ad says your own city? It's, hey, how's the weather in Austin, Alexa? Did you notice that?
No, I did not. That's pretty clever.
I've been trying
That's
to figure out
super
how they
clever.
did that. So I actually didn't see it live during the Super Bowl, but just watching it today, it was localized to where I am. And I'm guessing if you played it in New York, Bob, it would say New York. And how
Are
did
you
you
in
do that?
Are you in Austin?
I am in Austin.
Okay, so it only said Austin in all the videos. You're internalizing it because I saw 2 or 3 reports saying that that's their secret way of revealing that the next Amazon headquarters is going to Austin.
I talked to a friend in Atlanta today, and he said when he played it, it said Atlanta.
Mm.
So who knows? But
Your
I
friend
did
is
really
lying.
like
Jump
the
on right
ad.
now and find out.
Everybody's
go
locked
ahead.
down by this incredible insight from Emily.
But the other thing they did, I mean, and this is purely on kind of the technical or maybe like an Easter egg-esque look at the ad, but in order not to trigger all of the Echo devices, they had it at, I think it was 300 to 6,000 hertz, so that it was programmed to not trigger everyone's devices. Did you know about that part?
Yeah, I did hear about that.
That's so neat.
They talked about the fact that they were trying to do things to minimize the effect of it, because that's one of the big problems that podcasts have right now. I mean, we say the A word, and suddenly a million of these devices are going off all over the place. I would hope a million devices are going off, but
During the BeanCast, of
during
course.
the BeanCast, absolutely. But yeah, that was really clever to make sure that they're giving a good experience. This goes back to something I always talk about to my ad students. I mean, you really need to create value at every stage of the life cycle, including the awareness portion of this cycle. It's not just when you have a customer that you need to worry about the customer experience. You need to worry about the experience at the awareness level as well. And if you're creating conflict with people who have devices and turning them on and off, I mean, that creates a bad user experience overall, but that's beside the point. Any other ads that kind of stood out for any of you? Anything that really worked particularly well? Because I think the Amazon ad is a perfect example of an ad that does extremely well with both the ad press and the general press. I mean, it was very entertaining. It was interesting. It used celebrities. It was everything you want out of a Super Bowl ad, and it had
It was
extensive.
90 seconds long. It was insane.
Right,
Yeah,
with
so
6
good.
seconds of silence too.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd throw out, I thought the Crocodile Dundee Australian Tourism Board was really great. And the main reason it worked for me, or at least the main reason it's so high on my list, is they released it about 6 weeks early as a teaser, and people were actually losing their minds thinking there actually was a new Crocodile Dundee movie. So they capitalized on the fact that there's no new ideas in Hollywood and we're just retreading like Baywatch movies and stuff like that. So people had a strong opinion about this Crocodile D before it even, like, they knew it was a Super Bowl ad or they knew it was a teaser or it was tied in to anything. So when it showed up on the Super Bowl ads, people already hated this thing because they're like, how could they, have an American playing Crocodile Dundee? How could they be remaking Crocodile Dundee? All these things. And they're like, oh my God, like, of course, it's for Australian tourism. I thought that was really good, the way they actually stretched it out and planted the seed and let the seed grow.
That one's. Go ahead, Emily. I'm sorry.
I was just I love the misdirection. I thought that was really refreshing.
For me, I'm kind of intrigued about why so many people loved it, because I actually had the beans spilled on that ad a month prior. As soon as these teaser ads started coming out, I read in the press somewhere that it was really a tourism campaign. So there was no surprise for me, and it just came off as being really stupid and stilted. And I was kind of shocked that people who actually believed it was a movie and were taken in by the misdirection kind of liked it. And I'm wondering if I would have had a better reaction if I hadn't have had it, kind of ruined for me early.
Not everyone has their ear to the ground like you do.
Well, not everyone does.
Case in point, I didn't know it was a tour.
Neither did I.
And I literally sent that thing around to all of my Australian friends, and I was dying laughing. And I had no idea that it was a ruse the entire time. So
well, I think it's going to be a good movie.
So we like
the Purcell cleaning one.
Yeah, you mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, with the weed reference at the end, I thought was pretty interesting. I think even if we take a step backwards, some of the lines. I mean, I was blown away that they got the lines through. I had a friend, dear friend, who works at Lucky General, so I got a sneak peek like the day before or the day of, for the Amazon spot. And when I saw the lines or heard the lines that they got through NBC, I was blown away. So there's definitely at the network level, there's definitely been some relaxation in terms of the kind of content that they're going to let go on the program.
Well, I mean, when your president is saying things about certain countries, I mean, it's just like you might as well relax the restrictions because obviously there's no filter on him.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Let's turn the corner here because I think we've talked enough about what worked and what was really strong in the game, and it wasn't a whole lot of ads that stood out, but a few of them did. Let's talk about the ones that were kind of in the middle to potentially being problem ads. And from the middle standpoint, the Doritos ad for me is one of those weird ones that did extremely well with the public because people loved the actors who were portraying the roles in that particular ad. But I felt like it was a terrible, terrible ad. I mean, it was like the worst use of celebrities of the entire game. Did anybody agree with me? Was that a strong negative for anybody else, or did everybody else love the Doritos ad?
It's kind of in the middle on it. I love anything with Morgan Freeman. It was all right.
I thought it was the worst of all of them. Like it just did nothing for me.
I would say that about Pringles. Wow, that did nothing for me.
Pringles, the Pringles one did okay for me, and the only reason being it was a classic feature benefit. It's just like these chips stacked together, and why not stack them a bunch of different flavors to make new flavors? I thought, wow, that's actually pretty clever for a 15-second ad. I think it did a really great job of explaining what the benefit of the product was.
Or to get you to buy multiple cans at the same time.
Yeah.
Just seemed like wacky for the sake of wacky.
Yeah, true.
Can we go back to the Mountain Dew and Doritos ad? Like, how could you not love that? That was insane. Peter Dinklage spitting beats and Morgan Freeman covering what's her name?
Missy Elliott.
Missy Elliott. Yeah, I was like, it was so good. It was so good.
Yeah, and there's no doubt there was no doubt that it was an exceptionally well-received ad by the public. So I can't say it's a bad ad, but I did not like it, and I don't understand why.
So like, you have to help us understand that because you took two of the most reputable, unbelievably centered, and really, really methodical actors in terms of the way that they approach things. They've never done humor particularly well. And turn them into lampoons in this epic rap battle, like lip sync rap battle. Even the production value around it with the fire and the ice and everything I thought it was fantastic. So
it was great art direction.
Yeah, the art direction was beautiful.
Is this because I've never watched Game of Thrones? Is that why?
Yes, that's why you don't.
I couldn't. I saw that ad and I could have turned off the TV. But I don't watch Game of Thrones. That's what that's from, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I watched it and it didn't mean shit to me. But
yeah, I didn't dig it. It would have been better for me if it was a Gary Coleman hologram. At least use some star power.
What you talking about, Willis?
Oh man. Well,
can we talk about how sad that Kia Steven Tyler commercial was, where it's basically Steven Tyler morphing into ugly Steven Tyler to uglier Steven Tyler? Like it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, and how it tied back to Cars.
Well, it was such a weird proposition that it's just like he's going to go back in time and be hot to young women again, which is, kind of like.
Which is a joke in and of itself, really. If you think about it. It's two jokes in one.
I mean, I didn't see any benefit to the brand, and I don't really understand the story. And it's just like, how is he somehow cooler again because he's younger? I just don't get it.
Well, the ad was actually written by Steven Tyler, so maybe that had something to do with it.
You know what? I'm surprised I haven't seen anybody talk about, although I did see it I saw it on Twitter. I didn't see any like people talk about it in the media or anything. But Budweiser they spent $5 million on an ad to tell you that they donated $100,000 worth of free water. So why didn't they just give $5 million worth of water and not buy a Super Bowl ad?
Really, really good point. Why are we wasting so much money to talk about a minuscule donation? And, for me, it was a weird disconnect, too, because I know that the punchline was we gave water to people who needed water. But all I saw at the beginning of that ad is people talking about we have a disaster, and then it's just like fire up the machines, and I'm just thinking in my head, what, we're going to send them beer? I mean, it's just like a whole bunch of people who are desperate for basic necessities. We're just going to send them alcohol, and everything's going to be better.
But you know what, Bob? Talk about people who need a drink. Maybe we should have shipped them some beer.
Maybe.
Yeah, the other water-related ad with Stella and Matt Damon, Taps.
Yeah.
So that one was also kind of pompous with chalice. Like, what chalice? Why do you have to say that? It was kind of distracting for me. And I'm also so tired of seeing Matt Damon, especially in light of all the Weinstein stuff. I thought it was just this again.
Yeah, it's just like, for me, that was kind of a vanilla ad. It didn't really do anything. But there was one that was pretty lightning rodish, at least among the Twitter circles that I was moving among when I was talking about this particular subject. During the game. The Squarespace ad immediately got this visceral negative reaction from all the people I was interacting with online. It didn't seem to get a whole lot of respect from the public as a whole. I'm wondering, what were your impressions of the Squarespace ad? Did you find it offensive, or did you find it to be as weird and wacky as the other ads that they've always done, and probably just as effective?
I didn't find it offensive. It was just mildly confusing. I think they were kind of catering to that millennial sentiment. There's never been anyone just like you. I thought Wix did a better job because they showed exactly how to use the website, like the feature benefit thing, Bob, and that was a lot more convincing.
Yeah, I mean, it was so esoteric and it was so weird, and I'm not really sure what the value is. However, that's the way that Squarespace has always advertised. I mean, for the past, 4 years now running, they've done nothing but really super strange, weird ads, and they even won an Emmy for the ad that they did last year. And, I'm wondering somehow, this is a very metrics-based organization. Somehow these ads must be driving new members to their site, or they wouldn't continue to spend the money on them, right? So maybe they know something that we don't with these weird ads. Jonathan, what's your take on that? Are we just missing the point with these Squarespace ads, and that they're actually more effective than the critics are giving them credit for?
Yeah, I think they are, because I mean, as well as I do, if you take a look back over the years at the things that we used to do for Bud Light, even for Geico, usually it's more about entertainment value than it is about product benefit. And I think I think obviously it's working. Otherwise, somebody would have been fired a while ago. But I think that's its inherent value. If it gets you confused, you're probably talking about it.
Anybody else disagree? I mean, Colin, what's your take on the Squarespace ad? Because it seemed to be a very polarizing subject when I was discussing it, and nobody seems to have talked much about it since. So I'm assuming that it just kind of faded into the background, but was it more effective than we're giving it credit for?
I'm gonna have to go with it's probably, again, an instance where the conversation that you were having was with people in the industry. I think that conversation is worthwhile to have, but in terms of like reaching the general market, it probably just glossed right over them.
And Saul, your thoughts?
Well, I was going to say, is anybody talking about any ads except for us? You
Yeah.
know, we keep talking about, industry talking to industry. I thought this was actually the lowest sort of buzzy
Yeah.
Super Bowl ads ever. Like I haven't had a single conversation past 24 hours about any of the ads with anybody outside of the four of us and stuff like that. So I actually don't think even like the Martin Luther King ad, which I thought was super weird and offensive,
Super weird, yeah.
in real time, it lasted what, 24 hours? There wasn't even a public apology or anything.
I thought there'd be a backlash against that, and nothing happened.
Let's
It was
get
really
in.
weird.
Let's get into
we're
that.
talking about the Ram, right?
Yeah, the Dodge Ram
Yeah.
ads.
Well, you guys saw that. I even posted it, I think, on Twitter or something. But where what it was a direct recording of Dr. Martin Luther King talking about ads and how evil they are.
Oh yeah,
Well-
that was from the exact same speech.
If
Yeah,
you let it go
exactly.
5 more minutes, he specifically says, "Don't buy a pickup truck."
Exactly. he said, "I hate Ram," I think, at the end of the commercial. But that's the thing, though, is that it's funny to me because it drives me crazy when somebody does an ad showing a bunch of advertising executives in a boardroom. Okay, that is the epitome of us talking to ourselves. But I think it's because of what I do for a living, and I've done it for such a long time, that people still come up to me if they don't see me for a while. They'll say the first thing they ask, "Hey, what did you think of the Super Bowl ads and stuff?" So we get kind of a skewed perspective on that just because of the industry that we're in.
What is it you do for a living, Jonathan? You never mention it.
Saul, let me tell you, I was born in Beaver Dam, Wisconsin, a long time ago.
Then he was a rapper.
Then I was a rapper. Why does that come up every show, damn it?
Because you keep the YouTube video up. What can I say?
Here we go.
Well, let's talk a little bit.
Before we move on, Bob, I would also like to mention that Marky Mark punched me in the mouth. So that's probably for another time, but that's a true story. In Minneapolis, Marky Mark punched me in the mouth.
Okay, well, I'm assuming that you deserved it, but I'm not really sure.
You're probably right.
So anything more to talk about that Dodge ad? Because it was a weird thing. I know, Saul, you meant, who was it? Colin was mentioning the fact that there wasn't even time for an apology, and people didn't even talk about it much beyond the initial.
The only thing that would have made that ad better is if a competing company had a Malcolm X ad running at the same time.
Oh man, it's just like, for me it was weird because it's just like they had a non-apology that came out. They just basically said, we got this approved through the King family, and I'm just wondering, if the King family approved it and you want to use it to sell cars, what's the complaint? It's just like, is there any serious complaint? I mean, obviously it was a bad ad, and for me, that's the be all end all. It doesn't really do a lot to sell trucks, and it does it in a borderline offensive way. However, they got the approvals, they got the permission of the family. So what was the big uproar that would have continued over several days? I mean, it seems like they shut it down. They handled it extremely well by not apologizing, by just pointing out the fact that it was approved.
Well, it wasn't exactly. So the King estate approved it, but not the King Center. And Bernice King, his daughter, when asked about this, tweeted out, "No, nope, didn't approve it." I mean, she was not a fan, and I don't think Martin Luther King Jr. would have been okay with this ad. I mean, he once said, "The evils of capitalism are as real as the evils of militarism and evils of racism." So in the grand tradition of white people, they whitewashed him, and they're not quoting anything that was incendiary or really important or related to social justice. It was just dreams and service and all of that feel good stuff. And it is from a speech that really was kind of the opposite of marketing and advertising, and even mentions cars as a problem in advertising. So it's a litigious family, and they got it approved, but I think it was irresponsible for Ram Trucks. I think it was just co-opted and tasteless.
Yeah,
wow,
good
someone
points.
did their homework before the show. Emily Binder.
Well, let's talk about the value of the ads as a whole. What always surprises me is when we get to the discussion of effectiveness, we find counterintuitive successes emerging. Ads that we thought were ineffective seem to do extremely well. Ads that we thought were more effective or not doing as well with the longevity and the buzz rating. So, Jonathan, were there any results that shocked you out of the results that I kind of collated from the news from the week? Anything that kind of stood out for you?
No.
Okay, good.
But the one thing that I would mention is that, and I'm really interested in everybody's opinion on this one. I didn't see much this year of it's almost like everybody's going from the same cookie cutter, right? It's like, okay, we're going to release some sort of crappy teaser, throw it to YouTube, and then we're going to wait, and then we're going to show you the commercial, and then we're going to let people weigh in on it, versus the ping pong effect. We all know that you saw the statistics, I'm sure everybody did, on mobile device, right? That the mobile device usage went through the roof while watching the Super Bowl, which is not a surprise. But what I'm wondering is why I didn't see anybody really capitalizing on a good teaser campaign that capitalizes on it at the Super Bowl, so you have to watch to win, or you have to watch to be engaged, or you have to watch to somehow capitalize on the teaser message. And number two, I didn't see any interactivity between cell device and commercial, unless I missed it.
Yeah.
So I would have liked to have seen something like that, because you guys, what you could do. I mean, like, I have that, what's that wine brand where you hold the app up over it, and it's 19 Criminals? Is that 19 Crimes?
Yeah, 19 Crimes.
Yeah, where you hold the app up, you hold your phone up over the picture, and the guy will actually start talking to you and tell you about the crime that he did. Well, you can do that with your device and your TV. I didn't see any interactivity whatsoever, and I would have liked to have seen that.
So I'm going to take that one step further. I didn't hear any interactivity between commercials and personal assistants, and like Alexa and whatever you call the other one, which I thought was
Google.
supposed to be the thing now. I thought we're all losing our brains because we don't know everything about how to incorporate our marketing into these home assistants, and I didn't see anybody talk about it. And or anybody to push anybody there. And to go back to something Jonathan just said, yeah, I was really surprised, even just the movies, the Marvel movies and stuff that debuted. Marvel in years past has done really amazing things to drive people to their Facebook wall or drive people here. So they'd really they use their commercial to say, if you want to see the trailer, go here. And this year they gave everybody everything. And I was really surprised because at the very least they've been consistent doing that in the past.
Yeah, I agree with you all. I mean, in terms of the ability for us to do more with the interactivity using our mobile devices, that seems to be a no-brainer, considering that the statistics show that there was incredible increases in traffic during certain portions of the game, and that all of it was coming from mobile, almost all of it. And that means that you have this incredible opportunity to interact with a device that is very functional and very personal and has a lot of contextual relevance to what the consumer is doing at that exact moment. So why not take advantage of that?
You know what a brand would have killed with is if somebody created a mobile app, a completely branded app. I should keep this idea for next year, but no one's going to give me $1 zillion to do it. But the reason, and I'm not telling anything to the four of you guys, but the reason mobile went crazy is most people watch the Super Bowl in groups, and they're not going to have 12 laptops open, but there could be 12 phones. If someone actually had a mobile device that sent you a notification of when the ads were coming back or when the game's over, all the stuff that people don't actually care about, and they offered a game while the game was going, and then it lets you go back to watching the commercials because that's the reason people watch the Super Bowl. I'm sure a brand would have got huge affinity for something along those lines.
Absolutely, and plus, it instead of having a 30-second entertainment one-way monologue, you could have had something that even if half the people or 90% of the people didn't even have the downloadable app, you would still get longevity off it because people would be talking about it. Hey, have you seen this? Hey, have you seen this? And again, zero interactivity, and especially Bob, you're more of a direct response guy. Weren't you surprised that you didn't see a lot of that here? This is a Facebook. Our Facebook interactive ad or something.
Well, I'm not entirely surprised that people didn't take advantage of this because I know that direct response is based on the numbers. And if the numbers from previous efforts have not borne out, people assume that it's just not worth doing. But I think it ignores the reality that maybe your original idea just wasn't a good idea, and that maybe there's a better idea to deal with. And sometimes it's just the basic blocking and tackling that needs to be worried about. I mean, it's not always the fact that you have this cool interactive AR experience. I think that sometimes it comes back to how effectively did we manage the programmatic stream? Because the traffic is more legitimate during this time period. If someone's searching for a specific ad or searching for a specific piece of content or searching for a specific brand product during this particular moment, the traffic is much more legitimate than it is when the game's not playing. So why not make sure that your programmatic situation is worked out so that you're getting ad value during that time, extending the ad with an additional message or an additional incentive that adds value to the Super Bowl ad. And I think a lot of brands were doing that type of thing. I think that ultimately that's what added the enhanced value of dealing with a Super Bowl ad, because we talk about this $5 million price tag. The only way it justifies itself is if you're doing all this blocking and tackling behind the scenes and making sure that your digital program is as optimized as possible to the experience that the consumer wants at that given time, which means mobile, which means additional incentives, which means add value to that experience at that given time. And I guess that leads me to my next question, which is, is the Super Bowl more valuable because of the digital experience, or is the digital experience largely untapped, and so that $5 million is being wasted by advertisers that are not taking full advantage of it? And further, adding more to that question, given that the ratings were down for this year, the worst since, 2005 or something, that means that, this ad value is in question right from the beginning. So what are your thoughts on that, Colin? Is this something that is still worth the money, or is it quickly fading, and are we seeing the first cracks in the armor, and next year it'll continue to sink and it won't be as valuable over a few years?
I think there's two things afoot, and one of them has to do with marketing and advertising, and one of them has to do with the actual game of football. I'll deal with the second piece first. I don't think that football is going to succeed long term. 3 or 4 generations from now, I think you're going to see a major decline in the game across the board. It's already down in Pop Warner. It's significantly down in the high school level. I'm not saying the game will go away. It'll probably morph and change, and other things will happen that look similar to football. But I think the heyday of what football used to stand for the country is on the wane. Exacerbated by a number of things, physical injury and the political discussions that are happening around it. All of those polarizing things are going to continue to erode the game. The first part of it is around just the audience and the marketing aspects to it. And I think what you and Jonathan were talking about earlier, and even Saul to a certain degree, not bringing that interactivity or not bringing that second or third screen into play is a huge miss on everyone's part. The only one that, at least to my knowledge, that had any kind of continuing conversation in the digital space afterwards were all the memes that popped up after the NFL spot. And so if that's a way of, keeping that alive, and that spot, by the way, when I first saw it, I thought, because I was in New York and I was seeing a New York one, how smart would it have been for them to go to all 32 teams, have them recreate that exact spot, and have it run individually in each of those markets. Now all of a sudden you've got a very localized spot. It's the NFL. Of course they could have done that and run that thing and had everyone talking about their own individual teams, dirty dancing touchdown.
If I can interrupt you for a second, even that NFL ad listing on YouTube could have been handled better, because when I went to look for that ad, I couldn't find it. I had to do it. Wasn't.
I really had to dig too. Yeah.
Right, and I'm just sitting there thinking, no wonder the numbers were so low on the review of that ad. It's not that people didn't want to see it. It's just that people couldn't find it when they went to the ad blitz section on YouTube. But go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to point that out.
No, I agree with you 100%. Like, there are basic blocking and tackling, and I think part of this is because everyone gets so wound up about, the Super Bowl spot. It's just about that piece of creative. And a lot of other people who are doing their day-to-day jobs are probably not getting brought into the conversation that, like, how are we going to play this out across social? How are we going to play this out across our own properties? How are we going to do this from a search perspective? Like even that simple fact, not optimizing it for you to be able to find it more readily. I mean, you could have been listed under any number of things. I looked under Dirty Dancing, wasn't there. I looked under Super Bowl touchdown, wasn't there. Our Super Bowl touchdown dance was there. It's like it's a very, very tricky and complex thing to do, and you have to get all aspects of the agency, client, multiple agencies probably to get together and solve for these things. And it's probably more complicated than most people want to deal with, especially when they're focused on just getting that 30-second or 15 or 90 if you're Amazon piece of creative out the door.
Do you know what I think? And this is one of the, like, maybe the 1,000th thing I've said on the BeanCast, that in 8 years from now, people are going to be like, holy mackerel, he was so right. Because I'm always ahead of the game. But I think the NFL actually has to, the biggest thing they should be concerned about right now is the XFL. Vince McMahon, World Wrestling, whatever they call themselves now,
World Wrestling
WWE,
yeah.
Because XFL was a failed, shot at trying to take down the NFL, but it was way more interesting. And a lot of the things that we take for granted now about the NFL started in the XFL. Sideline reporters, on-field cameras, like all these crazy things that we take for granted now. The XFL announced they're coming back in 2 years, and I'm pretty sure they're going to dream up some other crazy things. And people, just like the way MMA took over boxing, it may be that the NFL isn't the king of the hill in 10 years from now, because, with all the things with, the protests, the people, the treatment, whatever you want to nail it to, the XFL just maybe a little bit more brutal and a little bit more fun.
I'll take it one step further. I'm sorry, Jonathan. I'll take it one step further. I think that the rise of e-gaming will even take it over. At some point, we're going to start to realize that a 12, 13, 14-year-old with the brain power to control 11 other human bodies that look photorealistic to us, because that's where this is all going, or I can sit in a virtual reality and think that I'm watching the exact same game, is gonna win one day over the gladiatorial nature of what we're talking about. I do agree in the short term that there is some violence that still needs to be worked out, and the MMA is a great analogy, right? You take the sweet science and you turn it into an even more brutal, condensed version of it, and people gravitate towards it right away.
You know who's really worried that the NFL might go away is Ferrari dealerships. They're sitting on pins and needles to see if they still have a business.
Yeah.
Well, I'll give you guys a little, this is a little bit of a side note, but they have the prototypes for projection uniforms. So I'm pretty sure that the XFL is going to use those. So basically, it's done through a wireless computer interface where you could basically put a Coca-Cola logo on the jerseys because it's projectioned. So there's going to be some pretty neat things like that. I don't know if the NFL is too stodgy to ever pick up on something like that, but it's not only an additional line of revenue for the league, but it's also some pretty cool stuff.
Well, there's one last topic I wanted to cover before we wrap up the show. After all the buzz about the Super Bowl ads, Elon Musk launched a Tesla into space. Basically, they were trying out a new rocket. They wanted to make sure it all worked. And as part of the experiment, they just put his personal red Tesla with a dummy into space with a screen permanently showing "Don't Panic." For those of you who don't know, that's from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I mean, it was a total nerd move, but it completely dominated conversation in terms of promotional value in a week when we should have been talking about the Super Bowl exclusively. And it makes me wonder here, I mean, Saul, this stunt has arguably stole away all the attention, but given the lowered viewership and the recall questions and all the other problems that we've discussed on this show about the NFL, does Elon present a better method for creating brand awareness? And is this something that is much more, a much smarter way to spend your money than a Super Bowl ad?
Okay, so I take such offense to this story, or at least some of the coverage of the story, because there was a headline that read, and I'm paraphrasing here, because as Jonathan knows, I'm a very busy person. I don't actually make notes for this show. But the headline of the article said, with a $0 ad budget, Tesla just pulled off one of the greatest marketing stunts ever.
Oh, that was such a lie.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
here's what chaps my chaps, and yes, I'm wearing chaps, and notice I didn't say assless chaps because I know the average BeanCast listener
Well,
is
it's
smart
not
enough to know
Tuesday, Saul.
all chaps are assless. If they weren't assless, they would just be pants, but I digress. Tesla is getting praise for pulling off a great stunt, but I have news for you. It wasn't a $0 stunt. It cost north of $90 million. I guarantee you, if you gave me $90 million for a stunt, I would have a lot more eyeballs than this got. So, Bob, you say that this dominated... Hold on, I'm on a tear here.
Okay,
You
but
say this
you're
dominated
wrong.
conversation, but only 19 million people saw it on YouTube. So that's a crazy big number. But guess what? The Alexa ad from the Super Bowl is at 41 million. I did look this up. And the Budweiser ads about them giving away free water, which was embarrassing, it's at 19 million too. So the same amount of people saw the Budweiser that saw the launch video, and that doesn't even include TV viewership.
Okay,
so we're
let's
apples to apples with the Super Bowl.
No, let's break down these facts here. Tesla did not spend a dime on this. Now SpaceX spent money, but SpaceX spent money.
That's like saying Sprite didn't pay a dime to be included in a Coca-Cola initiative or something. Yes, they're two separate companies. Same CEO, same owner.
No, that's entirely different. That's entirely different because Sprite does contribute to the bottom line of the Coke balance sheet, whereas SpaceX and Tesla are two separate entities. So given that, they didn't spend any money. And secondly, you mentioned that the relatively small number of people watched the YouTube video. Well, I can name every single news network had shown it repeatedly, and every single one of the nighttime late night show hosts talked about it explicitly, showing footage from it. So, I mean, the earned media impressions from this were phenomenal for something that the company needed to spend nothing besides giving away a car. And I
Guys,
think
I'm sorry, guys. I tuned out. I just heard Saul say something about tear and chaps. What's going on here?
Yeah. This was a very cool idea for a niche group of people, but don't call it a... Yeah, it's a stunt, but...
Well, hold on. Let me just take that, because that word has like a weird connotation in the world of advertising. And I want people to understand that, let's say it was $90 million that SpaceX spent to put this Tesla ad up. They put all of their money
technically, it was $500 million to build the rocket ship, 90 just to launch it.
Okay. So whatever that number may be, they chose to put that number into production, into production of an idea that they thought was brilliant, that would be passed and talked about, and it would get viewership just on the production merit alone. There's plenty of examples, but the one that I use for my clients all the time is a DC shoe ad. They got a professional stunt car driver. They put him in a Subaru CRX, and they shut down San Francisco for half a day and let this guy go nuts.
Those videos are great.
Yeah, the Gymkhana stuff. So, yeah. I mean, they get tens, if not probably by now. I haven't gone back in a number of years, but I mean, that's evergreen content that people still like circulate and share and repeat view. And they decided to put all of that production into they didn't spend a dime on media. They put it all into the execution of great content. And that's what this is. Great content that will probably be watched for years and years and years. People will tune in to just see where, like, what is he on the dark side of the earth right now or on the light side? Or,
Is this really great content? Like I don't know. This doesn't speak to me. I wasn't captivated by it. Like, maybe I'm just like, not the audience or something, but, I don't know.
I think it goes beyond content. I mean, this is a time when the word epic actually means epic. A billionaire hurtled his car into outer space. So I think that this is more than just comparing it to Super Bowl ads and who got the buzz. There's something greater going on here. So Musk is recognizing what most governments refuse to, which is that our planet is screwed. It's getting warmer. We're producing more trash. We're overpopulated. Our diets suck. Our species is a problem. And we're going to need to start moving away from the earth. And it's private ventures who are leading that charge, which is very interesting. So you can say, what you going to do now, US, China, Russia? I mean, Musk is on the forefront of that.
But that's not what he was doing. He was trying to sell more like Tesla 3s that they can't seem to even deliver yet.
No,
It's
no,
been
that's
2 years.
that overlooks what that was about. I mean, the Tesla that was launched in his space was just a nice little add-on to the fact that they were trying to prove a proof of concept to a client, which is NASA. I mean, they're basically trying to prove a proof of concept that yes, we can launch a satellite safely into orbit, and that we can reduce your operational costs. And isn't this great? It was a giant demo of what they could possibly do for their client, which is a government.
Let me ask you, Bob.
Wait, our planet's screwed?
Yeah. So let's send cars. That'll be a good idea. I know it's an electric car.
Well, I'm surprised nobody
let me have this moment.
I'm surprised nobody complained about the littering that went on. I mean, he's basically littered space with one of his cars.
Yeah. So here's the thing, though, Bob. You, in one of our earlier conversations about the Super Bowl ads, you said, I don't remember which one we were talking about. You said, I don't think that plays in Peoria. Do you think anyone outside of Los Angeles and New York cares about this this thing going off? Like, I just like it got, so I'm up in Toronto, got zero coverage, zero mention, nobody cared. It's like, it's cool. He 25 of my like real science oriented friends were super into it, but that was kind of it. Like, I still don't think, like, we're talking about how nobody's talking about the Super Bowl ads. I don't think anybody's talking about this today or anything. The last thing I read about it is I think the car vanished or it lost signal or something's going on with the car, but I couldn't have cared less to even investigate what the story was. Like, this just to me wasn't interesting, and maybe I'm just not the target.
No, I think I agree with you. Look, if you're going to make it interesting, let the car be the rocket and take off. Then I'd be interested.
Mm-hmm.
Well, with that, it's time for the Ad Fail 5. But before we get to that segment of the show, I do want to take this quick opportunity to thank my guests again and allow them to each do a shameless plug, starting with Emily Binder. You can find her at BeetleMoment.com. That's the home of Beetle Moment Marketing. Tell us what's going on in your world, Emily. What would you like to promote?
That's right. BeetleMoment.com is my consultancy. And if you're a business owner or a marketer looking to do some impactful work on your brand messaging, whether that's website or social, Facebook ads in particular, I'm looking for new clients, and you can find me at BeetleMoment.com. Also, a new creative endeavor for 2018 that I've been working on is video. And I'm focusing on career tips geared toward women, especially younger women, but the content is really kind of helpful for just about anybody. So you can find me on YouTube if you search Emily Binder. And thank you.
That sounds great. Yeah, definitely check her out. Again, the website, BeetleMoment.com. Next up, we have Saul Colt. You can find him at theideaintegration.com. That's the home of the Idea Integration Company, a really great concept on dealing with experiential marketing. You definitely want to talk with him. Tell us what's going on in your world, Saul. What would you like to promote?
I am the number one place to call if you have no interest in firing a car into space. So let's just make that really clear. Hey, February 21st, I am going to be in Los Angeles. We're doing our first live I Make a Living event of the year. We have an amazing lineup of Ralph Garman from the Hollywood Babylon podcast with Kevin Smith and also a voice of the Family Guy. We've got Clint Schaff, who's the VP of strategy at the LA Times. Lisa Niver, who's a travel journalist with over 1.5 million downloads on YouTube. And Mickey Krimmel, who's the founder of Superfit Hero. We have really honest conversations about careers and how people are making a living. Please come out. We've got about 250 people who have RSVP'd for the event right now. And I know that means about 70 are going to show up, and I'd really like there to be 100 people there. So please go. If you're in LA or you know people who are in LA, you should come to this thing. It's a great event. www.imakealiving.com.
Everything to do with the I Make a Living event is wonderful. So you definitely want to check that out if you are in Los Angeles. Next up, Colin Glaum. You can find him at AverettFreeGinsburg.com. That's where he is the Executive Creative Director of Digital. Tell us what's going on in your world, Colin. What would you like to promote?
I guess I should just mention that we at Avery Free Ginsburg are expanding, and we're looking to take on a couple of new junior roles for digital, specifically social. So if you're looking for a role, I'm taking resumes and looking at potential candidates for content creators as well as writers.
My resume's on the way.
Excellent.
Next up, Jonathan Sackett. You can find him, excuse me, at mashburnenterprises.com. That's where he's the president, dealing with all kinds of issues, like trying not to get killed when he goes to Costa Rica. But that's beside the point. Tell us what's going on in your world, Jonathan.
It's so true. Well, we've expanded into media capabilities, so I am now president of AllScope. It's called, so it's allscope.com. The press release will be coming out about that probably in a week or two. Jamal and I have now gotten into medical marijuana. So we made a huge bid on a farm and 16 distribution centers, and we're the last bid standing. So I'm assuming we got it, but God only knows. But I think probably the most important thing is I love this show. Bob's a good friend of mine. I hope people share the show because I think it's very valuable. And as far as my my colleagues that are on the show with me tonight, these guys are all super smart people. So doing business with them would behoove you.
Fantastic. Thank you for the plug. As usual, I am always grateful to you. And for more information about me or the show, visit thebeancast.com. There you can find a complete show archive. You can find out how to consult with me. And of course, you can find out how to advertise on the program. So check it all out at thebeancast.com. And now, finally, it's time for the Ad Fail 5, a rundown of the lowest moments in advertising, marketing, and public relations from the last week. And first up, you'd think showing freshly dead corpses would be enough to scare advertisers away from YouTube star Logan Paul, but no, Saul. Once again, advertisers were shocked, literally shocked this time after finding him tasing dead rats. No more ads, YouTube says, about Mr. Paul, until, of course, next time, right? I mean, it's just like they're not going to stop showing ads on Logan Paul's site, so what are advertisers supposed to do with this?
Well, I don't know what advertisers are supposed to do, but Logan Paul has said that he's learned his lesson. The dead rats were too far. And in his next video, he and his friends are going to get a bunch of homeless people, let them loose in an abandoned hotel and hunt them down.
Yeah, I can see that happening, very much so. Now, next up, Spirit Airlines has a big problem. I mean, besides the fact that they are Spirit Airlines. They apparently told a passenger flying home for a family emergency that she could bring her hamster on a flight from Miami. Then Emily, when she tried to board the plane, the gate agent refused her entry, allegedly suggesting that she flush her beloved pet down the toilet, which the distraught passenger ended up having to do in order to board the flight. A lawsuit is pending. I'm a little bit divided about this. I mean, it's just like, first of all, to be clear, Spirit Airlines vehemently denies that they told her she needed to flush this thing down the toilet. But obviously, something broke down in the communication stream for this to have happened in the first place, right?
Right. But if you're dumb enough to listen to a Spirit employee telling you to flush your hamster, I don't think you're a fit hamster owner in the first place.
Well, the hamster's the only thing that would have had leg room on those flights, too.
Yeah. Logan Paul released a statement that he was disgusted that these people flushed the hamster down the toilet. He would have taken it and killed it on his YouTube channel for them.
Yeah. He would have cooked it. And she should have just gone in the bathroom and pretended to flush it and then put it in her purse. You can get anything through in your purse.
That's what I didn't get.
Absolutely. Now, next up, the FTC has levied the largest fine ever against an ad agency. Marketing Architects of Minneapolis must pay $2 million for false advertising claims they made in promoting a weight loss product, which, Jonathan, seems excessive, except that they are also banned from marketing any weight loss products in the future because of a pattern of making false claims in the category. So it's not just that they did this once; they apparently have done this lots of times.
That was bizarre because I haven't seen that level of lying in a long time. And you got to remember, we launched Ally, that weight loss drug. Do you guys remember that product?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that was the backlash. The only backlash we got was your oily discharge. But nobody sued us, and we certainly didn't have to pay millions of dollars for it. I'm sure they had some sort of a backup plan for this, but how ridiculous that, because to get caught for lying in your advertising, I mean, that's so foreign to me. I can't even understand how the hell they were making these false claims, because it had to get approved somehow.
Yeah. It's just like if you get caught repeatedly for doing the same thing, you deserve the $2 million fine.
Does that really feel like the largest fine? I mean, that's when I read that number, I was like, oh, that seems ridiculously low for something that could make
not the largest fine ever, the largest fine against an agency.
Well,
Right.
yeah, well, fine, but I mean, like, think about how much money exchanges hands between really successful companies and advertising agencies. If you can skirt in a gray area, like if $2 million is not going to be the thing that stops somebody.
Well, next
But an
up,
oily discharge will.
Oily discharge for sure.
I had all you guys at oily discharge, didn't I?
Well, I mean, here's another. I mean,
oh,
this is just a little bit out of bounds.
dare I use oily discharge as the name for the show? I don't know if I can get away with that.
You're welcome.
I think the last one I was on was called Gassy, so please don't.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Emily Binder.
Now, next up, it's a bloodbath over at Newsweek, Colin, after it was shown that they were buying traffic to inflate ad impressions on their website. Man, it's like everybody's getting fired now over there because of this. One agency very publicly broke up with Newsweek, being shamelessly promotional on their own part to make this thing happen. But it seems like this is a no-brainer. It's just like you shouldn't be buying traffic to inflate your ad numbers. And they were doing like 50% of their traffic, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, it's when you're Newsweek and your publication is 4 pages long and your online presence is pretty weak. That's what you're going to have to do to try and stay afloat. Not that I'm condoning this in any way, shape, or form, but I'm not surprised. And I'm sure that there's plenty of other ones. If this is just one example of it, I'm sure there's plenty of others out there that are doing the same.
And
they apparently they paid out of work journalists to sit and click on all their stuff.
Did they really?
No, that was a joke.
I was going to say.
That would probably inflate their traffic just a little bit more. What the heck? Give it a try.
And last but not least, Mercedes thought it would be a good idea to quote the Dalai Lama in an Instagram post for the brand, except, Saul, they did it in China, where the religious leader is considered a criminal dissident. Many apologies soon followed after. Oh, my God. I saw this one and I thought, what idiot would think that it would be a good idea to run an ad in China using the Dalai Lama quote? I mean, not that I have any problem with the Dalai Lama. It's just that you're trying to market in China where it's just not kosher to be doing that.
It might have been the same person who thought it would be a good idea to use a Martin Luther King quote for a Dodge Ram commercial.
Exactly.
Touche.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll have something to add to this list or just want to discuss it? Comment online, use the hashtag AdFail5, that's pound AdFail and the number 5. Well, that does it for this week's show. If you'd like to subscribe to this podcast, visit our website at thebeancast.com and click on the subscribe link. If you're an iTunes listener, we've also provided a direct link to the iTunes Music Store, or just search for the BeanCast in the podcast directory of iTunes. And whichever podcast directory you use, when you subscribe, please leave us a review. Got a comment? Have a question? We'd love to hear from you. Just send your emails to beancast@gmail.com. Opening theme was performed by Joe Seibel. Closing theme by C-Jax. Thanks for listening. I'm Bob Norp. We'll be back again next week. Hope you'll join us then.
You know what I mean? It's like if it's, you know what I mean? I don't know, man. Just like, it's like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like totally like that. It's like, I don't know, like if it's, you know, it's like, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's just like kind of, it just seems like it's just like almost exactly.
I just got to tell you guys this real quick. We were getting so many complaints because people were under the false impression that if you take the allied drug, pill, that then you can just eat whatever you want. So people were eating like bags of chips after they would take the pill, and then they were calling and complaining left and right about the oily discharge.
Good God.
There's got to be a better title in there, Bob.
I don't think so. I think that kind of wins hands down.
cool beans.